time out to soon. And of course, welcome to Hard Talk on this year Tuesday, Power 102 Digital Tuesday with host Farid Ali. And of course, we have special guests in the form of Kareem Brung and Robert Hernandez. And of course, what's my good friend name again? Alvin Daniel. That's right, Alvin Daniel. So let me say good afternoon to you, Farid, and how are you doing? I'm not hearing you. Yeah, is your microphone on? For some reason, I'm not hearing you, man. You sure your microphone is on?
Um, is it
I'm
any
hearing,
better now?
I'm hearing you now. I'm hearing you now.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our special guest, Mr. Robert Hernandez and Mr. Kareem Brong. Just for sound check purposes, Mr. Hernandez and Mr. Brong, are you with us? Are you hearing me? Am I connecting with you?
Yes, I am hearing you.
Wonderful.
I am also hearing you, Farid. Good
Wonderful.
afternoon. Good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon to you. So, to the listening public, this afternoon we have no other than Mr. Robert Hernandez, executive member of Highlanders Steel Orchestra, and musicologist, Mr. Kareem Brong, um, both joining us to carry a discussion about a very affable and famous steel orchestra who has recently acquired uh, property and a home of their own, no other than Highlanders Steel Orchestra. Gentlemen, it's really wonderful to have you all here to carry this discussion this afternoon. David McIntyre, our anchor, he is in the background. He's coordinating everything from where we in order to make this program possible. What I've invited you all to is just a chit chat, a conversation, a dialogue to walk us through the new developments and to take us back in time in relation to Highlander Steel Orchestra and its place in our steel band history. I know, Mr. Brown, you're the younger of our guests. So
Yes, yes.
Highlanders would have predated you long before your parents were dating. Highlanders existed. So,
Yeah, yes.
according to a friend of mine, long before my father had the courage to approach my mother, he was
Ah,
born. So he was telling me that I can't begin a conversation with him until I assume a place in the line. So because of that sort of dialogue, we have Mr. Hernandez, who would have been part of the naval string of Highlander Steel Orchestra, and he would be able to tell us a little bit more than you. When in talking to Mr. Hernandez, he told me that you are responsible for the musical aspect of what Highlanders is offering. So
right, yes.
you're the other side of the coin, just as important as the foundation. You're the future, and he's the past that you would have walked upon.
All right.
So, Mr. Hernandez, maybe we could start with tell us a bit about yourself in terms of your beginnings. Where were you born? I don't want to say conceived, right? That's too personal. Where were you born? And what is your relationship with the Steel Orchestra in terms of the contemporary beginnings? Where did your relationship with them began? And perhaps just walk us through, what primary school you went through, what secondary school, what was your upbringing, and how did you come to be involved with Highlanders?
All right. Again, good afternoon to the world. Are you hearing me, Claire?
We're hearing you clearly.
Very good. Very good. Good afternoon. I know that this is being streamed worldwide, so I'm very pleased to be here today to promote and to inform on Highlander Steel Orchestra. And you were quite right. It is one of the legacy steel bands in Trinidad and Tobago. And through our diligence now, we are bringing it back after a period of dormancy. I was born on Erica Street in Success Village, Laventille. At the time, it was called 4th Street. This is back in the 50s. Highlanders was started in Mango Rose in 1953 with Kim Loy Wong. So that predates me here in Laventille. And then somewhere around 1961, Kim Loy Wong would have migrated in 1958, and he would have returned to Trinidad in 61. And when he came back home, he went to his sister's place in Success Village, Laventille, which was about 2 streets away from Erica Street, where Bertie Marshall lived, at the corner of the old St. Joseph Road. And at the time, Bertie Marshall had a little band there called Armed Forces. Armed Forces because at the time, the Americans were still at Chaguaramas base, and Bertie with his band used to frequent the Chaguaramas base, playing little gigs down there. So naturally, he would have created the name Armed Forces for the band. I grew up right here, 2 houses away from Bertie Marshall, on Erica Street. And as you rightfully said, my navel string is buried in the steel band movement right here in Laventille. I grew up hearing Bertie Marshall making pan, tuning pan, playing pan. I was part of the band there for all the years that it existed here on the corner of Erica Street and the old St. Joseph Road, Laventille. So I go way back with Highlander Steel Orchestra. I would have attended the Nelson Street Boys Primary School. Then from there, I went on to Ideal High School in Belmont. At the time, it was right here on Jerningham Avenue. And then I would have migrated and spent a number of years in the United States. And I would have returned to Trinidad in 2008. And upon my return, Highlanders was, it was still existing, but it was a fledgling type band where there was always some struggles. And I got back involved because when I left Trinidad, I left as a Highlanders person. And when I came back, there was a natural tendency to go right back to where I would have left off with Highlanders. So I got back involved in the band. And I made a commitment at that point in time. I would have met Bertie and spoken to him. And I would made a commitment to try to bring the band back, because at that time, Bertie would have left the band and gone to Desperado. So working with members of my community here in Laventille, we decided to put things together and bring the band back to some semblance of respectability and credibility. It so happens that Bertie Marshall would have passed in 2012. And in 2013, during one of the gatherings that we had, we decided to really get serious. And the first order of business that we looked at was to get a home for the band, because the band at that time was in an abandoned gas station at the corner of William Street and Eastern Main Road. Before that, it was up Erica Street in Rock City, and then I know for a period of time it was on Trotman Street. So the band never really had a home. And we went about having some discussions with NP, who had owned the property where we were functioning. And we got into a serious discussion with them about acquiring the property. But as you would know, the government doesn't sell land. So we were successful in negotiating a 99-year lease for that property there at the corner of William Street and Eastern Main Road. We got that signed in 2015. And with that, we approached the East Port of Spain Development Company and began discussions and negotiations to get them to construct a modern pan facility there for us. And that would have taken a number of years in terms of discussions and negotiations. And I'm very pleased, if we were to fast forward to today, I'm very pleased to say that we have a structure, a modern pan facility there on the Eastern Main Road in Laventille, which we are very happy. And it would be commissioned on the 1st of December, which is a couple of weeks from now, where we will have that type of a ceremony where the keys would be handed back to us. So that is in a nutshell how we got to where we are.
Let's backtrack a bit. You said that that Bertie Marshall, Pan Innovator, National Award winner, recipient of I believe the highest national accolade that a citizen could get. He would have been instrumental in the birth of the band. Tell us, did you have a relationship in the early years with Bertie on a level where you all related as to what dreams and aspirations you would have had for the band, in terms of what sort of relationship you had with him?
Well, Bertie had become like a mentor, a role model. He was revered and looked up to in our community here. I would have spent most of my teenage years in that panyard, in his house. As a matter of fact, when he was developing the bird phone, which was destroyed in the fire that burned down his house, and which really turned him, it was a whole different story when that happened. But I would have spent most of my time during, I'm talking about 68, 69, 70, with him in the yard, working on that phone, on that bird phone. And we had gotten very close. We were neighbors. My home was 2 houses away from his. He knew my parents. He would visit us at home here. Whenever I'm not home, I'm normally in the panyard there. So that the relationship that I had with him was one that would have instilled in me the character that led me to do what I'm doing now with Highlanders. And I admired his tenacity. I admired his due diligence, his commitment. He had a vision, and I think that is what was transferred to me in my association with him, so that I would have picked up on his that character that he had, where he was so focused that he was prepared to give up just about anything in his life to fulfill that dream that and because he was driven. If you would have been around Bertie Marshall in the days that that he was here in Success Village with the Highlander Steel Orchestra, and nothing else mattered to him in his life. First thing in the morning, last thing in the night, he was making pans, tuning pans, playing pans. And you know, for those of us that that had the privilege of being in his company during that period of time, he would have left an indelible impression upon us that up to today it carries forward. So I hold him in high regard, and I would have acknowledged that what I am doing today in terms of working day and night to bring Highlanders back to a very competitive large band in Trinidad and Tobago is because of the influence he had on me, and my admiration for the type of person he was, and the vision that he would have lived by, which I would have said earlier on, I believe would have transferred to me.
Walk us through that relationship between Mr. Bertie Marshall and Kim Loy Wong. That would have, that chemistry that would have come together and foster the idea to create Highlanders Steel Orchestra in terms of being a band that would be performing on the road for Carnival?
Well, Kim Loy Wong was the founder of Highlanders. This was according to documented history back in 1953 in Mango Rose, in his yard where he lived. He would have established that little steel band in his yard, and it was a band that, if you could go back to 1953 and the rudimentary nature of the instrument at that time. As a matter of fact, there's a little video on YouTube now that anyone who wants to go back and take a look could get an idea of the type of instrument that Kim Loy Wong would have created back in 1953. And he would have had that band from 1953 till 1958 when he migrated. So in 1958, when Kim Loy Wong migrated, Highlanders became defunct because he was the band. And Kim Loy would have returned to Trinidad in 61. And when he came back to Trinidad, he stayed at his sister in Laventille, which was about 2 streets away from Erica Street. And while he was at his sister, he would have heard Bertie Marshall band, which was Armed Forces. Because for the record, Bertie did not found or create the Highlanders brand. So Kim Loy would have come over to Bertie and heard Bertie playing music with his band, Armed Forces. And they got into a conversation, and Kim Loy, according to the record also, was amazed at the quality of the instruments that Bertie was playing, because Kim Loy at the time, his instruments were very rudimentary. Bertie was beginning to experiment now and utilizing his gift as a tuner. So Kim Loy would have said to Bertie, "We need to do something. I want to be part of this band that you have here." So they would have strike up an agreement where Kim Loy agreed to finance Armed Forces if it would go on the road, because Armed Forces was not a road band.
Mm-hmm.
So back in 62 now, which was the year after Kim Loy came back, he would have financed Bertie with additional instruments and racks, and they decided to go on the road now. But Kim Loy wanted some name. He wanted his brand on that band. So they agreed to call the band Armed Forces Highlanders. So the first entry of Highlanders on the road in 61 was as Armed Forces Highlanders. And then following that, there were some issues between some of the guys who came with Kim Loy from Highlanders and the Armed Forces guys. And they eventually decided to drop the Armed Forces and just go with Highlanders. So from 62 onwards, it became Highlanders Steel Orchestra. And the rest is history.
When I examine the history, and I'm talking about from the Panorama competition that began in 1963, Highlanders featured in those initial results. Tell us something about the placements in terms of the band's performances at the Panorama finals. If I recall correctly, and you could correct me, Highlanders did place in the top 3 in 1963 when Pan Am North Stars won the Panorama.
We don't have that on record, and I think that is not factual.
Okay.
That is not factual. In 1963, Highlanders did not place in Panorama. Highlanders came 3rd in the Panorama in 1968 with Obia Wedding, Sparrow Obia Wedding. Before that, Highlanders was basically a classical type steel band that got its fame playing bum tunes. so that in 60, 63, 64, they would have won the bomb with a tune, a classical tune. If I have to just check my notes here, I think it was Waltz.
But while you're checking your notes, for the
Yes.
listening public out there,
Uh-huh.
the public may want to know, what do you mean by a bomb tune? Perhaps you
Well,
can explain what a bomb tune is. Or
a bomb tune was something that steel bands played Juve morning. It was really prominent in the 60s, and bands would have practiced. Uh, it would be like a classical tune played in a calypso tempo. So bands like Renegades and All Stars and Pan Am North Stars and all these bands and Invaders, they would have come into Port of Spain on Juve morning, and we used to refer to it as dropping the bomb, because it would have been a tune that they would have practiced secretly, sometimes late at night, sometimes in the wee hours of the morning. The band would get back together and learn a classical tune, and that was a competition. So that and it happens even today. The northern region has a bomb competition every Juve morning, but it has lesser significance today than it did back in the 60s and the 70s. So that Highlanders at the time became very well known as a band that played these classical tunes in such a manner that they would have achieved a high degree of success year after year with these bomb tunes.
all right, Kareem, I wanna introduce you at this point. How did a young person like yourself got mixed up with Robert Hernandez and Highlanders? What was your introduction to Highlanders? Or when was your introduction to Highlanders?
My introduction to Highlanders was in the late 80s, right? I could be about 10, 11. Um, I grew up on Stanislaus Street, not too far from Erica Street, where where Mr. Hernandez lived and where Highlanders was originally, started on that area there. But I grew up on Stanislaus Street. Um, However, the significance about it is that there was this guy named Movin James. Deceased now. He lived opposite to my house, and he started back Highlanders in that late 80s, right next door to me, right? And actually, I remembered him coming across to my house and talking to my mother, about asking her permission for me to join the band, right? That at that time, my father he wasn't involved in the steel pan, and he was living abroad and playing steel pan and stuff. So moving toward it would have been natural that I would have, in um, that kind of, DNA, to play the steel pan. So he came across, he asked my mother to, Elizabeth Brown, to join the group. And from that point in time, she bought the sticks and I went across and started playing with the group. At that time, moving James, he was the guy who brought back the band, and he was also the drummer, right? He used to drum with Highlanders in the early East too as well, and he brought back some stalwarts too as well, which was Kelvin Halls. I would have called him the Beard Man. Alvin Romaine. Um, and well, the tuner at that time would have been like Tony Slater, right? And but he had his brother and sister, which was Vernon James and Miss Carmen, would have helped him bring back this Highlanders steel orchestra back on the scene. So as one of the youngest persons there, learning. I started on the Tanapan, and I remember the first year. because it was Highlanders was as Robert said, Highlanders was into the bomb, doing the bomb songs and thing.
Robert, we seem to have been getting a little interference there. Kareem's signal may have dipped a bit.
Yeah, I noticed that. I saw his screen is frozen.
Right. So I guess that will
Remember the first year they were going on in the following year.
Yeah, he's coming back.
Right, we on back on the inside. For the following year, I remember playing Gypsy Rondo. That was one of Highlanders classics in the earlys. And same, Gypsy Rondo is a classical song played in Calypso. And from then on, started doing stateside and Highlanders. And I mean, I think maybe later when I did the coming out of primary school, going into secondary school, I was in Success Lab until I passed for Success Lab, the composite school. So when I was there in Success, Moving asked me to come back and do some music with the group. So I was in the teens doing arranging and stuff for Highlanders. Because at that time he didn't have anybody to do the music with the group. So I started doing music. I mean, I didn't really know what was going on with the music, but I had a natural thing to it. And, being in Success, I got to learn music there with Mr. Ben Jackson and Mr. Lewis. So, that helped me to arrange for the Highlanders group. So, I mean, my whole discovery of music and steel pan was right there with Highlanders, right next door. I think I was real privileged to have a steel band right next door on the same street. I don't ever take a taxi to go anywhere to do any music, but I mean, that's how my history started with Highlanders.
Kareem, you're being very modest about your history. You're currently involved with the National Steel Orchestra, if I'm correct. Maybe
Yes.
You could tell the public about where you are now in terms of your background in music, because you're not only musical, but you're music literate. So to put it another way, we have natural musicians, pianists, persons like, I mean, we can use Buxy Sharp as a typical example. Dr. Sharp isn't formally trained in music, but he has an ear for it, and he developed his talent and honed his talent through time. The benefit or disbenefit, that's subject to musicians like yourself that you can see. When it is your music literate, in terms of you can read music, that's a different kind of structure, a different kind of background. I know the late Pat Bishop would have been schooled in music literacy, and she would have encouraged persons like yourself to become music literate. Tell us how you just explained your introduction into Highlanders. You explained your musical talent, but
Right.
what caused you? What would have triggered you to get into the formal aspect in terms of training yourself and educating yourself along the lines of formally learning music in terms of the music literacy? What would have caused that?
I think I had a natural passion for the music, especially doing music with Highlanders. Later on, doing music with the Success Stars fan songs. I would have been part of the Success secondary school. That was the steel band there, and then later on playing with Neil Massey All Stars and these kind of things. So I mean, at that time, coming out of school, there was a decision to be made. It's either I go and get a job or I go to do music and stuff. And actually, I did the both at the same time. I signed up for the Republic Youth. There's a youth apprentice program at Republic Bank, and plus, my mother saw that I was interested in the music, so she signed me up to do the certificate in music, and at the University of the West Indies, right? So as soon as I finished that, um, I decided to move on to do the degree program. That was later on, some years later, going back to the University of the West Indies to complete a bachelor in music at the CCFA, which is the Department for Creative and Festival Arts. Right. So that passion for doing music and arranging, I'd like the panorama scene, doing music for panorama, the composing and stuff like that. So, and then also being a player at the Lydians, the Lydians choir where Pat was part of, they required you to read music. She, um, well, let me go right back to, there was a festival night in 1994, I believe, where Ben Jackson was the conductor for Pan Nights. We were entering the competition as Pan Nights Steel Orchestra, and the president at the time that was Owen Serrat. That was his band. He invited Pat Bishop to oversee one of the rehearsals, and coming the rehearsals were at the secondary school out in the car park area. And when she came to the rehearsal, she found us up at the music room, with our music stands and the music and stuff. We were doing a Jit Samru composition called La Trinity, and Ben had given us each our parts to play, and she was amazed at how we were at Panman reading music now. She was amazed about that, and she decided to capture all of us and create this Lydian steel with the to accompany the Lydian choir at that time. And from then on, I decided to take the music serious and venture into trying to get a degree and these kind of things right here locally. And I mean, it has proven well. Later on, I'd gotten serious into the Republic Bank. I was simultaneously doing the music and working at Republic. So I spent about 6 to 7 years there at Republic and decided to, I saw this ad for the National Steel Symphony and they were looking for members. And I mean, Avis, who was my girlfriend at that time, she had advised me to join the group, right? And which I did. I went and auditioned. It was a two-part process where you play and then you do an interview process, which I actually passed both. And about a year after that, they decided to start up this National Steel Symphony Orchestra, um, somewhere in 2007, and which I joined, and which I became the captain of the National Steel Symphony, and now um, I'm now currently the artistic director, right, of the National Steel Symphony Orchestra, and it's has been a wonderful journey so far. You know.
So from our discussion with you, you played with All Stars as a panist in the early years, and then you got into arranging. Um, what what role do you see for formally trained musicians like yourself? What role do you see arrangers with that sort of formal background? Um, where do you see yourself fitting in into the panorama landscape? Because many of our arrangers in this contemporary time, they would have been what we would sometimes use as old school. They tend to follow a format of verse and chorus. Um, Now we look at the Duvon Stewarts who they don't really follow a template as such, or they tweak the template. What is your view as a musicologist, as somebody formally trained in approaching an arrangement?
Well, the stalwarts like Bugsy and Ray Hallman, they have set a format, right? And they would have done it in a different way, with a different vibe in the steel pan yard. But the arrangers now, like the one Stewarts or the Sion Gomez or the Amrit Samrus and thing now, they are using technology now. They are incorporating the technology and developing the arrangements now. So you would see that musicians like me, you would see them with pieces of paper or maybe with the technology of the phone. You know, they write the music now, right, and then bring it to the panyard and then pass it along to the membership, right? So that use of technology now with the modern day arranger, I would say, assists with the arranging style of the whole landscape now. You know, the arranger now, in terms of a musician, would look at things differently. Um, they would structure it. They would not just try to follow the same structure that was there from since the 60s to now. But you would find that the even the music now pushing here, the type of selections that it have on the radio now pushes you into a different direction, into setting up your arrangements in a different way now, so that it would suit the landscape of music now that we getting on the radio stations. So you can see the type of music that we would have got in the 60s, 70s, 80s, compared to the 90s and 2000s is totally different, right? Um, Not much brass lines. There's an influence of the American style of music on our soca music now, right? So you're seeing and hearing this fusion of music now that is in soca now, you know. Um, just like even the Nyla Black one we was listening to. Nyla music is not just um, straight and pure calypso. You know, it's a combination of all kind of different genres fused together. So the musicians now they would actually dissect things. They would take it from a different point of view and turn it over and bring it back into your face now, you know. It's all into the how the climate is now, you know. Um, you can see the difference between the style of arrangement when like a Blue One Stewart style compared to Lens Bookty Sharp style, you know. Have similar wavelengths, similar devices, but in the way in which they present the material is different.
You know, like every good football coach and cricket coach, um, you know, they often say that you're a manager and a coach is only as good as the team in terms of the players that he has. You as a musician and you as a musicologist, you may have ideas about the music you want to put on to put in the public space, but if it is you don't have the players to execute that music, you're in problems. In other words, it's only so far you can go when you have players whose ability is at a certain level. I'm not saying that you know the you may not have good players, meaning that I'm just saying generally.
No, you're right. You are correct. The players they are the one that would interpret your arrangement, right? That is why a band like Massive Trinidad or style with the arrangement of smooth arrangements. I mean the way in which there's a synergy between player and arranger. It's quite difficult to beat all stars on a final night, right? Because of that synergy and because of the whole um this whole transitional skill from senior to young, right? It's there, it's evident that if you have an experienced line of players, you will get a better result compared to beginners, and you know, because they don't have the same understanding of somebody who have been playing for over 10, 15 years. You know, there's an experience in the hands, there's an experience in the way in which they interpret the music, how they roll the parts, how they strike the notes. You know, it's an experience. You can't get away from that.
Robert, I want to refer to you a little bit here. Where Highlanders is now in terms of you have a yard or the premises you'd be working from, where's your players coming from? Meaning that so many steel bands now tend to import players outside of their contemporary space. I don't want to call names, but I know some of the South bands that are prominently playing in Panorama finals year in, year out. They tend not to have home-based players, meaning players from the community. They import players from the wider southern areas. And those players come and they play with the San Fernando bands, if I may say that. Your Highlanders Steel Orchestra, where are your players coming from? And do you have a catchment area of players, or you draw players out of the school system?
We do have a core group from the community, a community-based core group. But for the most part, most of the players come from outside of the community. We remember our community has certain challenges too.
Mm-hmm.
So that when it starts to get dark, folks want to be inside. So we have to face those challenges too. But you're quite right. Steel bands today, for the most part, players are from outside of the community. As a matter of fact, we even have a movement of players between Trinidad and Tobago also when it's time for competition. So this is the reality of the state of what's going on today.
Right. But that may not be such a bad thing when you have players who are competent and formally trained and who are enthusiastic about playing. They can only add value to your community by lending their skill set. But what it means is that the community spirit that comes with having a band. Sometimes when you have other elements in terms of other players coming from different communities, it helps to forge a different kind of synergy. In the days when Highlanders, take us back to you were talking about the bomb tunes between 63 and 68, because you indicated that in 68 Highlanders would have placed third playing Obia Woman in the Panorama. Tell us about the bomb tunes in that time period. What were some of the songs that you all would have, the bomb tunes you would have played, and who did the arrangements in those days?
But for the most part, Bertie would have done the arrangement. We also had a musician, Leslie Slater, who would have done some arrangements with Bertie. He lived right next door to Bertie too. But the tune that is probably the most prominent tune that Highlanders would have played was Let Every Valley Be Exalted. That is a tune that when it was played and a record was made of it back in 65, it stayed on the charts for weeks, probably months upon months. Karim would have mentioned Gypsy Rondo. That is the next classical tune. Italian Girls in the Algiers. That is the next classical tune. Eine Kleine. These are like Tchaikovsky and Mozart pieces of music that Bertie would have taken and played, in a calypso type tempo.
All right. Where do you hope to, now that you have a place to practice, a home, what are some of the aspirations you have for Highlanders in terms of not just participation in the Panorama, but off season? What are some of the dreams you have for the band in terms of, off season is important for a steel band, because the thing about steel band music is traditionally through the years, Ash Wednesday, all the bands pack up in a yard and unless you get a gig, unless you're popular in the sense that somebody wants to hire the steel band, it might rest down there collecting dust until the season commences again. That formula isn't sustainable in order to maintain and sustain a brand and take it forward. So now that you have a home, one would expect that the band will be practicing through the year, open to gigs for hire to generate income in the short term, but at the same time forging relationships with corporate Trinidad in order to get a sponsor. Do you all have a sponsor at this time?
No, we don't. And if you would notice, the jersey that I have on has Highlanders on it, and there's room above the word Highlanders, which is room that is, I left that space there just so that when we get a sponsor, there'll be a position for the sponsor's name.
Mhm.
But your question is an excellent question, and I think what is happening now in the steel band movement is that steel bands are more than just steel orchestras. Uh, our vision for the Highlander Steel Orchestra is more of a community type organization that has a business component to it. We are a social type organization where we are involved. We are involved with the schools. We are involved with the three primary schools, and there's a secondary school in the community here that we have serious linkages with. Um, we also are involved in the businesses that are in the community where we recommend youths from the community for employment. The building that we just will be getting in a couple of weeks, that building was designed for a business commercial enterprise, meaning that there is a space for the steel orchestra to rehearse and practice, but there is also on the top floor of the building classrooms where we are going to be establishing a learning center using the primary schools and secondary schools in the area, where the children would come to that learning center after they are finished to do things like homework, and on weekends we will have craft learning and different things like that, so that the Highlander Steel Orchestra that we are putting forward now is a community organization that would be involved in the community and would be involved in community building. The building would also have a gift shop. It would have a cafeteria and bar. It would have a conference room. The top floor of the building, which has 3 classrooms, is designed so that those 3 classrooms, the dividers could be removed, and the entire top floor of the building could now open up for functions where we could host different type activities. So there was a lot of planning and thinking that went into the design of the building. And I have to say that I'm very pleased with the cooperation that we would have gotten from the East Port of Spain Development when we went to them with the design concept, and they readily bought into it. So that we are looking at Highlander Steel Orchestra now, and this is I'm not sure how familiar you would be with the Lloyd Best model of a a paniard, but utilizing that Lloyd Best model of a paniard where it is now a commercial center, where you would have year-round activities, year-round commerce. Our plan is to have our businesses that would be located in the building open every day. Now, if you went to Renegades, you will understand that they are a year-round business. You go by All Stars, they are open 365 days a year. Well, we are going to be adopting that exact same model here in Laventille, where we would be open for business every day of the year. The steel orchestra component, which is going to be our core product, and which Kareem and Shaquille, who is the captain, and Kyler, who is the vice captain, and the musical aspect of the band, we will have that. We will support that as a year-round activity also. But there will also be a business enterprise part of the Highlander Steel Orchestra, where I would be bringing some of my expertise and forte to that part of the business. And just as a backdrop, when I met Kareem Brown, and because I had not known him, well, he was not in my time with Bertie Marshall, but when I met him and I realized and I got to know his history, and I realized that here was what you would call a diamond in the rough. He was a gem of a person, and him having his roots in Highlanders, I went out of the way to make sure that there is something here in Laventil that he could hold on to, so that he don't gravitate towards some band outside of this community. So what I would have done in terms of working to establish this Highlanders brand back in Laventil, Kareem Brown had a lot to do with that. So we as in terms
David, maybe you and I
of
can
G's, I
okay,
think
good.
it is perfect for where we are today for us to move forward.
You having described as you did, you know, sometimes in the very beginning we must plan for the short, medium, and long term. You would
Mhm.
have a board, a team of persons that you're working with. I mean, we have to think succession planning from the out of the blocks. Do you have persons in your with your vintage working along with you, meaning your age and your experience, and incorporating younger persons? So when the baton has to be passed, Highlanders wouldn't find itself as it did in the past with lying dormant for some time before it starts walking again. Have you been grooming persons to that share your vision and sharing that vision with them and telling them where you hope things should be and where you want it to grow and so on and go?
Yes, and you know, I do have a business organizational background to me, and I understand very well the importance of succession planning, and uh, we take pride now in Highlanders of having one of the youngest captains in Trinidad and Tobago, who happens to be 22 years old. So, and he has been with me since he was 12 years old. I would have identified him and brought him into the fold, just as Kareem Brown is in the fold, and we are talking about two distinct generations here now. And surrounding these two individuals, Kareem Brown and Shaquille Gaskin, um, we have a number of people that are representative of their generation with them and with us in the band. So I am very, very comfortable and confident that that we have that succession planning in place. So that if I decided today or tomorrow to decide to just move on, Highlanders would be in a good state. It would be in a good state to continue for the next 40 to 50 years. And as I would always be telling these younger people, make sure that you bring younger people with you, just as I would have done in fostering the two generations that are behind me. Make sure we have younger people involved and give them authority, give them responsibility, motivate them, make sure that they are there. And more than anything else, Fareed, let them understand that they own this. Give them ownership. Because if you don't believe that you own something, it's very easy for you to move on.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a big part of my whole philosophy with the group that I'm working with. They understand that what we do, because the building that they have now is on a 99-year lease, and we just into the 5th year of that lease. So they know that they will probably leave that lease, leave that building at some point in time. So they understand very well that they need to make sure that they bring people along and share the vision so that this would continue. We're not going to have what happened to us when Bertie Marshall left and went to Desperados, and Highlanders went through a series of dormant periods. When Kareem mentioned about moving, that was one of the transitional periods. We have had since Bertie left Highlanders about 5 or 6 individuals who would have held on to it and took it to a period, and then it would have gone into a period of dormancy, and then somebody would have come along and take it again and carry it for a couple of years. And guys like Charlie Pinder and Jimmy Singh and Junior Mears and who would have kept it going, and it's in our court now. And we have done something in terms of building a more solid foundation and infrastructure that would allow for posterity to live on for quite a few years to come.
Kareem, when we look at, I'm talking to you purely in the context of from a musical point of view. When we look at the arranging aspect of music, you would have to work with your pan tuners and work with the persons who prepare the instrument in order to get the sort of sound you as an arranger would want. What sort of relationship do you see with arrangers and the tuners of an instrument? Kareem?
Seems like
I'm
we have
afraid
lost
we may have
Kareem.
lost
Kareem
him.
has to keep his microphone and his cam on to stay on stage.
Mr. Brown, are you there with us? Or while that is happening, I want to take this time to welcome Mr. Alvin Daniel. Mr. Daniel, let's...
Good evening, and thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Are you hearing me loud and clear?
We're hearing you loud and clear and seeing you clearly. Mr. Daniel, with us is Mr. Robert Hernandez. And I would have said to you before, we're carrying the discussion on Highlanders Steel Orchestra. Mr. Daniel, maybe you could engage us in terms of Mr. Hernandez was explaining the history of Highlanders. I know you would have been involved in Panorama from various points of views through the years. He was sharing with us that Highlanders' history was essentially in its germinal years a bomb tune specialist, though it may not have been placing in the contemporary competition at certain points. They were always very, very active and very involved, particularly in the 60s. Maybe you could share with us some of your experiences and your recall of Highlanders, Mr. Daniel, and the part that they would have played in the early stages of our steel band history.
First, a big hello to all our viewers and listeners, and to Power 102 in general. Thank you for having me. Mr. Hernandez.
Good day, sir.
I am a person who loved Juve Morning. Your pan playing classics is something I miss terribly.
Yes.
I would normally look forward to Juve Morning to hear different steel bands play classical music. So distinct, so complete, so accurately. And your band, Highlanders, was one of the best at it. Yes, and I have fond memories of following the band, listening to all the intricate notes that you all played. And when I think of bands of that era, Highlanders is right up there in my top 5. So it is a pleasure, distinct pleasure for me to talk to someone who has been there from the birth of the steel band virtually. So I want to really interact with you as to some of those early days and what it took to learn some of those pieces so meticulously. Robert, talk with me about those days. Are you hearing me? Did you hear me a while ago? I think he has a problem.
Mr. Hernandez.
I'm back.
Yeah. So I am more or less want to know what it took to say, learn us a piece like Let Every Valley Be Exalted. What kind of routine did you all go through to learn a piece like that?
Well, my recollection is that Bertie would normally during the carnival period when they were practicing calypso pieces, he would normally end the practice sessions and have the players come back after everybody leaves, and they'll go through those routines with the bum.
Yeah.
But I think that Bertie Marshall has to be given all the credit for his genius, for his creativity and his keen ear. There isn't words that we could aptly say to describe the kind of talent that he would have brought to the steel band movement, especially in his creativity.
But were you a player in those days?
No, no, I was not.
But
No, I was
you
not.
frequented the yard.
Yeah, I lived 2 houses away from the band, and I was there every day, every night.
We share a common bond there because I used to live opposite Starlift. And being
Okay.
close to a panyard gave you an insight that many people do not realize. The opportunity to listen as an arrangement is being formulated in a panyard. All the repetition, the mistakes, the shouting, you didn't get it right, do it again. No, that's not the phrasing. And then hearing the band perfect itself over a period of time. Do you recall those experiences?
Yes, and one of the interesting things about the whole Bertie Marshall period too, if you recall where he lived and where the band was at the corner of Erica Street, it was actually in his front yard, and he would be
Yeah.
inside the house while the band is rehearsing, and from time to time he would come and there would be an open window overlooking the band. He would come during some of the practice sessions, and he would call out, and he would basically shut the music down and call out to a particular player on a particular pan who he would have discerned made a mistake or made an error or played out of tune. I mean, he had an ear, and for someone who was not as well versed, we would not have picked it up. But he was so fine tuned that he would pick up the slightest error or the slightest wrong note that a player would make, and come and correct that, and have the band start back playing over now until that is corrected.
In fact, our early pan tuners were noted for tuning pans without some instrument that told them what note it was. They were able to develop the scale on their own on the instrument and then picked up related notes, whether it was sharp, flat, or whatever. And that is a gift in itself. What
But
was
in
it
the
like
early
for you?
days, in
Yes,
the early
please.
days, in the early days, Bertie tuned with a mouth organ. Very early days, and as he moved forward using that mouth organ, then he would put it down, and then he would start tuning by ear. And for the most part, he would tune by ear until he was able to get a strobe, and that is when he basically perfected the art of tuning. But
I think
I recall perfectly well Bertie tuning with a mouth organ by ear when we had guys like Tony Slater that would build the pan for him and then give him the pan, and then he would go about tuning.
In fact, I think he's credited with one of the first to what we call tune to the second and the third harmonic.
Yes,
Now,
yes.
for people
He
who
has the
know
credit for
music, that is so difficult to do on a pan, to be able to take it to the point where you got it fine-tuned by going to the next harmonic. And
Correct.
it's one of the things that he was able to do early in his pan tuning ability. What I want to get from you two is the impact it had on you when the band was finished and they suddenly you said they're now playing the finished product. What was it like for you as a listener?
Well, I remember I was a very young fella at the time. As a matter of fact, a late teenager at the time, and I would have fallen in love with the music. And in those days, Highlanders was a community band where at night during rehearsals, the entire community came out and supported the band.
So when you were listening to that finished product, this is what I'm saying. You would have heard all the mistakes, you would have heard all the tuning, all the repetition. Now they're saying, we're ready to go on the road. What did it do for you?
Well, Alvin, I was ready to go. I was ready to go. You know, as a music lover and as a steel band music lover, I normally would immerse myself in the music, and not being a trained musician, sometimes the love for the music will allow you to enjoy even errors that are being made where a trained musician could discern these errors. You could be hearing some of these mistakes and you would be of the view that that is part of the presentation.
Oh, you have a point there, because I think this is one of the problems that we have with, let us say, I call them the street adjudicators, where they go to Panorama and they would write off a band or say that band win already. But do they know what to listen for? Do they know, can they discern the little fine points that the adjudicators are trained to do? And how do we, who do things like commentary, educate the general public in some of the things to listen for? As you rubbed shoulders with the band and the arranger himself, did you pick up ways and means to understand what was going on?
Yeah, well, I feel quite fortunate now, Alvin, that I have a very close working relationship with Kareem Brown, who is the musical director, arranger for Highlanders. And spending the amount of time with him now, not being a trained or qualified musician, the amount of time that I spend in the band now and around him, and I'm able to detect from time to time when he would knock the pan, when he hears something that was off, and I would begin to process to try to determine what he would have heard that caused him to stop the practice. And then he would go over to a particular player and he would spend a little time with that player, go through certain routines, and then he will have call the band back to practice again. So during my time around Kareem now and the band, I am paying attention to some of those nuances that he's involved in, just so that I could learn. But again, music is a language of its own, and I would be the first to admit that my literacy in terms of music is far from being able to detect the fine tunes in music. I leave that entirely up to him, and I work towards enabling Kareem to be successful with the band and also enjoy the moment of the presentations that are being done.
Well, I see Kareem has logged on.
Yes, he's back with us.
I want to welcome him to the program. But I also want to let you know, Robert, that Kareem and I have done some things together over the last few years. In fact, going back maybe to the 90s. And I have the greatest respect for his knowledge of music. And in fact, many times when I composed with another person or so, music fought with the pen in mind. It is Kareem that I would call on to score it for me.
Correct.
And I know that his work was accurate because I could play it back in my computer and listen to it. If I heard a mistake, I might even challenge him. Are you sure it was that note and not that note? Or you think that's the best chord? And we would have our little back and forths, but I really respect his knowledge, and he was usually very accurate in his interpretation of the music. So Kareem, welcome.
Thank you, thank you.
Kareem was here all the while.
And I think Highlanders could not get a better person at this time than you. I've been following some of your arrangements with different bands. I know your history now in terms of your work through UTT and so on. And I really look forward to seeing you mature into one of the top arrangers. And to take a band like Highlanders and bring them up to the fore would be a real challenge. But I think you're up to it. Tell me what you're doing these days and what your plans are.
Well, currently the guy on top now in terms of the artistic director in National State Symphony Orchestra. So I'm pretty busy there now. Apart from that, arranging for Highlanders to Orchestra, doing music with Unistars to Orchestra. And in the background, doing some compositions. Working currently with Metamorphosis, with Nancy Herrera and also Ronald Taylor, trying to develop. I'm writing some music so that he can choreograph that music for Metamorphosis. That should be something one sometime next year between the part of May 2024. So currently working on some 4 pieces for arrangements so that in the future that he can write his choreograph his dance his pieces. And currently, there's a lot happening in the background. But I mean, right now on the front burner is Panorama. I know how
Who
the
will we
situation
be
with
working?
Panorama.
Are you working with Highlanders for Panorama this year?
Yes, I am. I am.
What
Right.
category?
Small band category. It's small right now.
Is the
Um,
only band you'll be working with?
we're doing the engine room.
What other
Um,
bands are you working with?
but other one.
Are you working with any other bands?
Oh, well, in capacity of a drill master, just trying to get supposed to be working with some Robinson song specialists in the band category. As a driller, I want to work alongside Sion Gomez,
Right.
and also but any large band category, I want to work alongside Supernovas and Hammonites. Just want to explore see how I can look at in the capacity of like a partnership, trying to see how I can assist the bands and getting the music.
Put in that little 2 cents worth to bring the band a little sweeter, a little more
Yeah, that kind of way then, yeah.
right. But tell me especially about what drew you to Highlanders. What prompted you to become acquainted with them?
With Highlanders, I mean, people, as I said before, people may not know, but Highlanders is the first band I started playing with. I was influenced by deceased Morgan James to come across to play, and the music was different at the time. The type of music that Bertie would have done with Highlanders was different and it was interesting. That combination of non-traditional calypso music played in traditional calypso style was very refreshing. The way in which they take that original form and break it down into a 3D style a Trinbagonian style was very, I like that. That was very interesting. And some of the players, people would grow up talking about Buxy Sharp and Ray Holman, but at my experience with in Highlanders, I had Alvin O'Mean. A lot of people may not know Alvin O'Mean, but he used to play a mean double seconds, and also his brother Leonard used to play a mean double tenor. And you had Kelvin Halls, these guys that have used to play four sticks. The double tenor design and a way to play four sticks, so you
You're
can
right.
get the chord movement, major minors, across the two parts. And these guys and them was very was like a icon to me and very inspirational. The dexterity they had, the memory capacity that they had, they remember tune after tune after tune, and I find that was very
Not
amazing.
cutting you, but when you talk about playing with four sticks, Talif had Zephyrin. I don't know if you knew him,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
he was not easy with a four stick either.
Nah,
It's an art not to play with four sticks.
yeah, it's not it's an art form. I saw Sidney Joseph as well. He
Yeah, he
was
does it.
doing the art 4-6 style, and I guess it's from watching maybe marimba players how they use these several number sticks over the marimba. I don't know if that's the reason why, but you get a whole not just a melody playing, but you get kind of company itself playing with a 4-stick style. You know?
Right.
And that was very interesting. And that kind of pulled me into the and also the third unique thing about Highlanders was about the amplification process that they
I
had
was
there.
gonna come to that. Yes.
Yeah, they when moving was always the first couple of years, the band was full with all these big boxes, music boxes around, and there was always a guy experimenting with the how to capture the pan in a unique way, and I find it was a step forward then, because you can hear the band from a distance, the steel bands they had to come very close,
Yeah.
and personal, and it kind of give you a feeling of the pan being in a kind of brass band kind of style,
Well, I
So
have fond memories of being on Green Corner and
right,
Landers coming around the bridge into Park Street, and I'm hearing them so clear and so distinct and magical. That's the only way to explain it.
yeah,
It really stands out as one of the finest moments of me and Pan on a Juve morning.
and that's technology that that we kind of behind it, But I mean, we have the advances of the 5 pan and all this kind of pan, but that capturing the instrument is always been a challenge for some like people who they can capture a voice very easily. They can capture the drums very easily. But when it comes to pan, it's like a different technique, a different experience, and a
When
kind
a
of
new arranger comes to a band, he has mixed feelings about how he approach a band. Do I try to retain what the band is noted for, or do I bring a fresh style to the band and arrangement? What is going to be your approach?
well, this year, the reason why I chose into room is that what I was explaining to Robert and the rest of us is that in Lavender we have the biggest engine room and the most popular engine room, which is in Lavender section, which I grew up, listening to and also at sometimes playing with the group. And when Ola Tunji released that piece of music last year around December time, it was like too late for us to choose the piece to do it now because Panorama would have already been, active.
Right.
And I always kept that arrangement in my head, and I think I could bring a different spin on it, on that interpretation of the engine room. Because
Well,
we are the engine room,
yeah,
we are
well,
the
one of the comments I made to many of the bands that I heard is that they never really captured that essence of the theme of the song,
right.
where you felt the engine room come to the fore in
Yeah,
terms of expressing itself at a significant point in their development. And if you can capture that, and I'll be listening for it, I think
yeah,
this is
that's what
what
we're
will
looking
make
for.
the difference, you know?
That's exactly what we're looking for.
So I guess that's what you're aiming for.
Yeah, that's what I'm aiming for, And I know I've had the support of the rhythm section.
Kareem, I honestly think that you're underrated. You're not really recognized yet. This might be your year to come forth and be acknowledged as, hey, this guy is doing something, you know. I know that you're capable and I know that you're musically sound. So I really look forward to what you're going to do next year. And choosing that tune which has been so popular, I see no reason why it cannot carry over into another year.
Yeah,
Really been an outstanding tune for the band. And not that it was necessarily written entirely with the band in mind, but you and I know that when we composed tunes, it was for everything. But we made sure that it had some ingredients in it that would suit the band, chord
yeah,
structure, melodic flow, and things like that, and also the theme, which gave the ideas to the arrangers to develop which direction they went. But going back to Robert, Robert, what made you choose Kareem?
Well, when I was looking around, when I decided to get back involved in Highlanders after spending some time in the United States and returning home here in Laventille, um, Kareem was not the. I had not known Kareem. I had the guys who were running Highlanders at the time, uh, Junior Mears and Charlie Pinder and Jimmy Singh. I got with them and I would have asked them about an arranger, a musician, and they would have mentioned a young fella in the community here uh, who I would have approached. And at the time, he declined. He declined. So that like in football and basketball and baseball, you go to the next one, and the next one turned out to be Kareem. And I did not know of Kareem's history in Highlanders at that time when I approached him. So that when he and I started talking and I got to understand his history in Highlanders, then it dawned on me that it was the blessings of the Almighty that this young fellow who I would have gone to had declined. And this was fate realizing itself because Kareem, and I would tell him this from time to time, belongs in Highlanders. And he belongs in a Highlanders that he can rise to the very top of the steel band fraternity here in Trinidad with. And that is my commitment to him. And that is what I am working every day towards. And you keep mentioning, Alvin, that he's undervalued and maybe underrated. And I happen to believe that too. Because the talent that I see in that young man and the qualities and the knowledge, I think he needs a band like how Jet Samaru would have had a Renegades and Smooth would have had All Stars. I think Kareem and our plan is to take Highlanders to a large band in the next year or two. But I think Kareem is the person that will take Highlanders to a championship in the large band category in Trinidad and Tobago. And I would live to see that. I know he has the talent, he has the ability, he has the capability, and it is just a matter of time. And things don't normally happen before it's time anyway. But we are diligently working on that right now.
I think you have assessed it correctly, and I expect that between you and him, you're going to find the common ground that is necessary to work together and put this band on a way upward. Kareem, I want to mention something that you can use to build on. A band like Silver Stars, which also has a rich history. From day one, when I first spoke to Edwin Pouchet, his aim was not to stay where he was. He felt the prize was at the large bands. And until he got there and came out on top, he felt his work wasn't done. And I want to challenge you to think the same way.
The funny thing is that
Check your sound.
he was one of fearless arranger. He was on that same Kareem was,
I don't think we're hearing Kareem.
Yeah, we need some volume.
Mr. Daniel, maybe what we can do is we would call him directly and at least get the benefit of a direct call with little
All right.
interference.
I'll leave you to do that.
I'll work on that behind the scenes. In the meantime, Robert and you would continue where you are.
So Kareem, Robert, what's the status of the Panyard like right now?
Well, we would have for the last 5 years, Highlanders has been in the Unistar Spaniard while a Highlanders Span theater is being built. That building is now 99% complete. As a matter of fact, we are being handed the keys to that Pan Theater on the 1st of December, which is about 3 weeks from today. It's a modern state-of-the-art facility with equipped with classrooms for a learning center. It has a room for a cafeteria and bar. It has room for a gift shop. It has a conference room built into it. It has an arena for the rehearsals. There's office space. So that we, over the last several years, would have, and I don't think you would have heard this part of the conversation, but we would have acquired property from the National Petroleum, from NP, on a 99-year lease.
I heard about it, yes. Yeah.
Right. So we got a 99-year lease on a former gas station, and we got the East Port of Spain Development Company to construct a Pan Theater for us, which is complete now, that we will be occupying on the 1st of December. So we are well positioned in terms of a permanent home, so we can feel very comfortable that we have somewhere where we can conduct not just music, but building and commerce. Because our intention, our plan is to not just have a steel band and a panyard, but a facility, a modern facility where we can do much more for the community in terms of learning center and working with youths in different crafts, and so this is where we are right now.
Well, I am very, very pleased and impressed that you have taken up on this route virtually on your own. And I've always said that until steel bands find ways to make themselves self-sufficient, we'll never move forward as a country. And I think what you have to do is make the other steel bands see you as the model. When they come and look at your paniard and all the accessories you just mentioned, they must say, I want this too. And they must make every effort to make this the way steel bands present themselves, not a part-time thing only at carnival time, but a year-round place. And I would suggest one of the things that I know worked for another steel band is to have a special night when your band does performances for the public. Your repertoire and everything is going to benefit. Your cooking, your food, things, all your accessories, your anecdotes and so on, any books you have, all these things will be relevant to your live performances that you create in your vineyard. So I plan to be in Trinidad for the latter part of December. And one of the first things I want to do is to come and visit your vineyard.
Well,
Okay,
you could
gentlemen,
try
let me
to get
just,
here by the
let me
end
just,
of November, and
excuse
you'll
me,
get time
gentlemen.
for the opening.
Let me just interject here. I have Kareem on the telephone.
Yes, don't worry.
So you can chat with him. All right, so Kareem is there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Kareem, are you hearing us?
Yeah, I'm hearing you. You are hearing me?
Yeah, the song is
Yes.
very good.
Are you ready to respond to what I last asked you?
Just ask the question again, please.
Between me and you, I forgot already. But I think I was on the line of aiming.
Taking it to
Oh, yes, I
championship
remember
as a
now.
large band.
I was
Oh,
taking it to championship level. Is that one of your goals, and how do you hope to achieve it?
yes. That is in the planning stages. We would have spoken to Robert that we would like to go straight to it's going to take about 2 years the plan is in 2 years to enter the large band category, right? So we're in the process of acquiring the necessary amount of hardware that is needed to compete in the large band category. I would feel more comfortable going with a band in Laventille, either Highlanders, as a
Right.
competing in the large band category. But yes, can't stay in small, medium. The thing is large. Large is the thing.
Correct. How are you doing otherwise in terms of your composing, your scoring, your arranging, everything about yourself? And I know your lovely wife is here with you too in terms of everything that you do. So let me know a little bit about your personal involvement in everything.
Yeah, we still do any scoring and composing. We just kind of pause on the I've been doing songs for the panorama period. We decided to hold up on that until like 2025 and start back the compositions for the offerings for the carnival period. As you know, the challenge is always getting radio play and for the music to be at least heard by the population before you play it on the instruments. That's a challenge. But the panorama has taken a different turn in terms of the selections being more from the soca realm, soca artists. However, from this year, they realize that there's not enough selections coming out. I feel like there will be a challenge for selection of songs, and I think in the jump back in the market for the next carnival period and see if it will take now.
All
But
right.
the last
I'm enjoying a 2 cents worth here. And I have to thank Power 102 as one of the stations when I used to produce CDs, not only of my music, but anyone who came to me with a song, I would try to get 14, 15 tunes on a CD and put it out there. We'd launch it in a panyard. And certainly we got the support of stations like Power 1 or 2 would even invite the artists to come and talk about their selection, perform it live, and and we got the support of the radio stations those years. And in fact, for a while, at least sometimes 6 out of the 14 songs in the finals were all coming from the very CD that I speak about.
Yes.
Yes, there has been changes, but I think because of the writers like yourself have actually sort of pulled back because they feel the soca was taking over. You saw the paucity of choices this year gone. In fact, except for Voice and Olatunji, there was nothing to draw from.
Yeah.
Yet, do you realize that the 2 songs that were attracted again were in fact using the theme of Pan in their compositions?
Exactly.
So
Can you imagine
this
that?
is what we would do.
Imagine that. Imagine when we were doing it, we were trying not to use the word Pan in the compositions. Eh?
Right.
So that, people would more, try to play it more, but but going back is like a circle.
Right. So I think your idea of aiming at 2025, but I think what is also going to need, you've got to use the fact that the Pan is now accepted internationally.
Right.
And so we don't have to sit down and wait for a radio station to play our tunes.
Right.
We have to come forward and market it. We have to showcase it, launch the people who are putting out material. One of the things Kitchener used to do was to make sure his tune was available early. And from the time he released it, everybody said, that is for Pan. He didn't say it was for Pan. But the structure of the song, the way the music flowed, the way the chord structure was. Bee's Melody is not a Pan tune per se, in terms of it says anything about Pan. But from the time you heard it, that was designed for the instrument. I think this is what writers have to do. They've got to put out good, solid material on anything. And once they do, the panman will be attracted to it. So I look forward to that. I have a couple, but like you, I've been holding back a little bit,
Yeah, you just waited for that. And as soon as they declare the pan,
the spring.
Steel Pan Day on the 11th of August, it kind of have this drive now for the Steel Pan now as being acceptable on different levels. There's a crave now for the Steel Pan in the parties, in performances now, I find.
Right.
There's a pan on the rise,
That's an expression. There could be a composition, pan on a rise. I'm always listening, I'm always listening.
Yeah.
But back to you, Robert. Tell me a little bit more now about attracting new players to the Panyard, because that's what it's going to take to move to the next level. What are you doing to attract some of the youth? And listen, some of these youths, their skill on the pan is awesome. I think one of the things that came out of last Panorama was the youth and their exuberance on the pan. What are you doing?
Well, it's quite infectious. When you look at the youths performing, you know that they're totally engrossed in the music. But we are expecting, now that we have new facility. We have a new facility on the Eastern Main Road. We are expecting it to attract people that would come now and feel more comfortable, because where we are now in Laventille on the Old St. Joseph Road, which coincidentally is now the Bertie Marshall Boulevard. Where we are there, sometimes we get a little resistance for folks wanting to come inside of Laventille, So we expect, as we begin to promote ourselves now, that we will attract players, and we have primary schools and secondary schools in the area here that we have some connection with, that we're going to be working with them to get them, whoever have players, to come and play with us, because our objective is to develop a stable stateside that would be year-round. And we feel pretty comfortable that that would happen now, because as I mentioned earlier, we do have a core group, but we need to expand upon that group, especially as we begin to look towards transitioning from small conventional to large. We have to grow. We have to grow. And the only way we can do that is to attract younger people, as you rightfully said.
Who is going to be the pan tuner for the band?
Well,
We have been using
yeah, let Kareem talk on that.
a guy from the he's also a member of the National Steel Symphony Orchestra, Kyle Noel. He's young in the business. He has a nice way of tuning the instruments that we have. Some of the instruments are not very new, and he has an understanding of how to bring those fans alive. And then we have I've lost Doyle, I've lost Herman Guppy. So we are now in the process of looking for new talent. Kyle Noel is one.
You have Kaija Codrington too.
We have Kaija Codrington. He's the pan builder, basically. So the new instruments that we have now and going to get will be built by Kaija Codrington, and maybe in the future he may come along as one of the tuners too as well. You never know. So young people that we have now.
When it comes to tuning pans, I know some tuners are more gifted at doing the higher range instruments. And to me, the background pans can make such a difference if the right person tunes your basses and your cellos.
Yes.
Are you looking at that aspect of it as well?
Yes, because before Clifford Alfred passed away, Clifford would have been the guy marked for doing our background. I was, basses and mids. But for that aspect of it, I was looking at either Andy Mills or going back to either my good friend Stu. Either between two of them to challenge them with the basses and mids. Because Cal has a good expression on the frontline instruments. Yes, so we will be exploring somebody for the background.
Right. Well, this is
If I may add something at this point, when we spoke earlier on about this Highlanders mission that we are on as a community development organization, in addition to a steel orchestra, I have to make a plug here for Michael Cooper at Panland.
right.
And the fact that we have 3 of our young players, and they are between the ages of 19 and about 22, 23. So these are young fellas from the band that are currently at Panland with Michael Cooper, being taught and trained in pan construction and basic tuning. So Panland for us is like a hatchery where we are looking at developing tuners that would come back to us now.
That's a great idea.
And we have an excellent relationship with Michael Cooper, and he knows our mission and our vision, and he's working with us, and we are involved in intermediate to long-term planning with what we are doing now. So these young people that are there now they know that they are there for a purpose and they are there on a mission.
What role does the image and the contribution of Bertie Marshall play into the band's, let us say, persona today?
Well, I think Bertie Marshall is still highly regarded among the senior members of the Pan fraternity. You know, you could have a discussion with Bugsy and he would mention Bertie. You could have a discussion with Ainsworth Muhammad and he would mention Bertie. You could even go into academia and speak to like Professor Clem Imber, he would mention Bertie. You know, so I think Bertie's influence is still here, but it's probably waning as that generation that knew Bertie and would have benefited from him is begin to move on. What we have to do, we have to keep that information alive. And this is part of what we are doing.
What sort of recognition would the band be giving to his image in terms of a picture, anything that when you see, you can people would want to ask, who is he? And then you are able to then expound.
Well, we undertook the year after Bertie's passing, the Highlanders organization, of which I was a part of at the time and still is, undertook to galvanize community support in the form of a petition, which we got, and we approached the then government to rename the entire old St. Joseph Road Bertie Marshall Boulevard. So today, that roadway that begins by CGA, where the Eastern Main Road and the Old St. Joseph Road dissected, right up to Fernandez, is now Bertie Marshall Boulevard. So I think that type of recognition is befitting of him. The building that was just constructed, that would be commissioned on the 1st of December, is going to be dedicated to him with a plaque, 24 inches by 24 inches plaque, with his name, where it's going to be spelled out in bold letters that this building is dedicated to in honor of Bertie Marshall, ORTT, pan-tuner, arranger, leader of Highlander Steel Orchestra during such and such a period. The wording is being composed of right now, but that would be done. We are also going to put a mural on the building with Bertie. There's a famous picture of him sitting in his joining room with a hammer and a stick tuning a pan. That is going to be a mural that is going to be 10 feet by 10 feet, that is going to be on the building.
Wow.
So that we will always, the Highlanders crew here will always regard Bertie as an inspiration and as someone that came out of this community, that rose to the very top of our society in terms of the performing arts. So we are working to make sure that he gets that recognition.
And that's what I wanted to hear, and I'm very pleased to hear that he's going to be recognized in this manner. Very, very well thought out. Excellent work. Back to you, Kareem.
Gentlemen, we just have 1 minute to close up shop here.
Okay. Well, let me just say that it's been a great pleasure to be here. I get chills when I talk to anybody in the pan world, because I can relate to it and I feel a special love for it. So, Robert, it's been a pleasure. Kareem, it's been a pleasure. And Fareed, thank you for inviting me to be part of this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. To the listening public, today we featured Highlander Steel Orchestra. We want to extend our best wishes to Robert Hernandez and Kareem Brown with the adventure that they'll be engaging moving forward, and we look forward to hearing more from Highlanders Steel Orchestra in 2024. Gentlemen, you always have a home here at 102, so we look forward to another synergy with you on another occasion. Thank you so much and enjoy your evening. Mr. Daniel, be safe, and thank you for making time for us.
And thank you, Fareed, for giving us this time. We appreciate it. And best of everything, Alvin.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure.
One or two family friends having us here. Thanks very much, Alvin. Nice speaking to you, man.
Yeah.
All right. Say hello to
Kareem,
anybody.
thank you, Alvin. Thank you, Robert.
Good evening.
Fareed.
Thank you.
We got news straight ahead, gentlemen, and of course, Dennis is in studio with me.